It's about initiation through suffering, awakening through discipline, the soul's evolution under pressure. Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the Rosicrucians, the secret Brotherhood of Light inside the Rosicrucian Mystery. So Rosicrucian arose in early modern Europe in the 17th century, and in my opinion, after several heresies, and I would say that the Rosicrucians are the true Christians who deviated from the Orthodox Church, who went underground and they came up as Rosicrucians. These are Gnostic sects and just many of the sects that were not included in the orthodoxy. They embraced alchemical ideas, was a coded way to keep this tradition alive. So this video will be in 7 parts. I will put them on the screen here, but we're going to start with this question: what is Rosicrucianism? Well, I think that depends on who you ask. I have some theories I will lay out later in the video. Briefly, there were 3 texts that announced a new esoteric order to the world, and I think we should start with those. The 3 initial texts. Between 1614 and 1617, there were 3 anonymous manifestos. They were published first in Germany and soon after throughout Europe. The first was the Fama Fraternitatis Rosicrucis, which roughly translates to the report of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. The word fama kind of means fame, but it also means renown or rumor. And this text recounts the life of Father C.R., his troubled pilgrimage to Jerusalem, his instruction by the hidden sages of Damkar in Arabia, and his study of physics, metaphysics, magic, and the Kabbalah. His return takes him through Egypt, Fez, and Spain. In occult interpretation, his pilgrimage represents stages of the great work. Upon reaching Germany, Father C.R. and several companions establish an esoteric Christian order, the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. Its members are dispatched across the world to heal the sick without payment, remain unadorned by distinctive dress, and assemble each year in the house of the Holy Spirit. The second text is from 1 year later. It's called the Confessio Fraternitatis, and there is the German title on the screen, sometimes simply called the Confessio. It represents the Brotherhood as a secret society devoted to spiritual and scientific renewal, combining esoteric knowledge with practical service to humanity. The text calls for the reform of religious, social, and intellectual life, emphasizing the pursuit of wisdom, moral integrity, and the healing of the sick. The Confessio focuses on the ideals, principles, and mission of the order itself. And then 1 more year later, the Chemical Wedding came out. This allegorical text recounts a mystical journey undertaken by Christian Rosicrucians, written in the form of a symbolic narrative. It depicts Rosicrucians' invitation to a mysterious royal wedding filled with trials, alchemical symbolism, and spiritual initiation. I think this third text is the best one. This guy, I'll put his name on the screen, is the figure most frequently credited in writing these, but there are rumors of others like Francis Bacon or a German collective of authors. Nobody knows for sure. The Rosy Cross. So I've been fascinated with this symbol for many years. And to be honest, the power in this symbol is how the symbol changes. As I go deeper into occultism and Gnosticism, I get a more nuanced view of it. In terms of the Rosicrucians, the cross is the intersection of worlds: material and spiritual, horizontal and vertical, human and divine. Christian mysticism sees it as sacrifice, limitation, suffering, incarnation, the conflict between higher and lower impulses. The rose is the unfolding consciousness, secrecy, inner illumination, the soul reaching toward its highest state. In alchemical diagrams, it's the prima materia, the unfolding, the spiritual flowering, the inner mysteries, the soul in bloom, the heart center, the secret fire that drives spiritual growth. So what does it mean when you bring these 2 things together? It's about initiation through suffering, awakening through discipline, the soul's evolution under pressure. This is kind of an alchemical idea. Personally, when they talk in the text about healing people, I don't think they're referring to people who are physically ill, although that could be part of it. I think they are talking about healing the soul, opening the eyes, saving a person. One by one, that is the mission of the Rose Cross. The 3 Rosicrucian pillars. Christosophia, Trinosophia, and Pansophia. One thing I appreciate about Rosicrucianism is the varied iconography. There's so much symbolism here, and it definitely ties into alchemy. If you haven't seen the work of Michael Mayer or Robert Flood, you should definitely check them out. I think they're the big hitters here. Their images really capture the imagination. With this in mind, there are three main tributaries of this doctrine. Christosophia is the heart and redemption. Trinosophia is the path or initiation. Pansophia is knowledge, universal wisdom. Christosophia comes from Jakob Boehme. He is the origin point. Years ago, I saw some of his texts in Amsterdam, and they were just beautiful. If you haven't ever gone to this museum, I'll put the name on the screen. You should definitely check it out. It is amazing. But Boehme describes Sophia as the eternal divine feminine wisdom, and Christ as the redemptive logos, their union in the human heart as the state of regeneration. He explicitly uses language connecting Christos and Sophia and frames salvation as the soul entering the Virgin Sophia, a mystical rebirth. And this fusion becomes the backbone of later Rosicrucian spirituality, I think. And if you're a Gnostic, you know where he's going with this. The second one, Trinosophia, nobody knows for sure, but they speculate this comes from the Count Saint Germain. From this text, the document contains 12 initiatory stations, which is a kind of symbolic alchemy. There's Kabbalistic numerology here. It's an internal ascension via threefold purification. If you want to check out the manuscript, it is in France. Like I said, the authorship is uncertain. Number 3, we have Pansophia. This was originated from Comenius, who was a Czech mystic and educator. Pansophia means a universal philosophy uniting all sciences, theology, and nature. And he called for universal reformation of knowledge, deeply influenced by Hermetic and Rosicrucian ideas. All three of these pillars are the transmission lines that are going out to later Rosicrucian ideas. The Tree of Pansophia. So Pansophia roughly means all wisdom, from the Greek pan and from Sophia, which means wisdom. There's this publication that includes the visual tree. Speculum means mirror. Ansophicum means of wisdom. Rotostaroticum means Rosicrucian. Roto meaning rose and staros meaning cross. It isn't named that in the text. The name is a modern scholarly label, but the emblem is unmistakable. It's one of the first graphic attempts to depict universal wisdom as a living structure, and you could liken it to the Tree of Life in the Kabbalah. But what is the purpose in Rosicrucianism? The tree is not decorative, it teaches how the universe is structured, how the initiate progresses through it, how wisdom descends from the divine and is cultivated in the human, how alchemy, piety, and natural study converge. And this leads to the Rosicrucian Mystery. It's called the Secret Brotherhood of Light or the Invisible College for good reason, I think. And I have theories about these titles that I will go into a bit later. But for now, the Rosicrucian Mystery is the hidden process by which the human being is transformed into a new kind of being. The profane human becomes the sacred human, not morally improved per se, but ontologically changed. In some of the texts, it's stated that they had no fixed headquarters. They admit no one through normal means. They cannot be found by searching for them. They contact you only if you're ready. This isn't a recruitment gimmick or some kind of trick. It's described as non-physical initiation, something that happens internally, not organizationally. The fraternity is a state of consciousness, not merely a group. Their mystery is fivefold, I think. The first mystery, the order is invisible because it's inner. It's an inner resurrection. The vault of Christian Rosicrucians isn't just a tomb. It's a symbolic diagram of the initiate's psycho-spiritual anatomy. The opening of the vault is the awakening of the latent divine spark. The Sophionic principle, the Christos principle, these three forces converge in the human soul and produce a second birth, a transformation of perception, will, and essence. And the initiate is forever changed. Mystery 2, you die and awaken while still alive. Rosicrucians don't worship a literal rose on a literal cross. The symbol encodes a formula. The mystery is that those two belong together. Human suffering, the cross, is the necessary matrix for awakening, the rose. Mystery 3, the world that traps you is the same world that transforms you. This is the Pansophic insight. Hidden beneath alchemy, Kabbalah, astrology, medicine, and natural philosophy is an underlying principle that unifies. The world is structured in analogical harmony. All disciplines reflect each other. Nature, mind, and spirit operate under the same laws. True wisdom is integrative, not compartmentalized. The fourth mystery, everything corresponds to everything else. As above, so below. At the highest level, this concerns the regeneration of will, not the ego's will, but the deeper, quiet, Christosophic will, the inner governor. When this awakens, desire becomes aligned with wisdom. Action becomes aligned with truth. The person becomes a living stone in the invisible temple. They cannot be shaken, they have no fear. This is the magnum opus, not the literal making of gold, but the great work. Mystery number 5, the perfected human is this work. And perhaps this is the most important part of the whole mystery. I used to have a friend, maybe you'd call him a teacher, but I think he was more than that. But he used to say all the time, it's all about the work. When he said this, I had no idea what he meant. This was years ago. Years later, after much study on my part and much hardship, I finally got it. And that's where this takes a turn. Legacy. There are countless Rosicrucian groups. Here is a list of some of them. These are all fraternities. Some have 501c3 nonprofit status, and they probably all do great work in the world. And perhaps there are true Rosicrucians among them, or perhaps not. But I would say it's more likely to find one working at a gas station or as a vacuum salesman. That's just my 2 cents on it. Now I have a few questions that I'm going to try to answer. Who was the original Christian Rosicrucian, and was he a literal person or a symbolic archetype? Well, no records exist outside the manifestos to confirm his existence. I think it could be more like a title, like the Buddha, maybe an alias, something like Banksy, so he doesn't get in trouble or heresied. But I think whether he was literal or symbolic, it's irrelevant. The power of the teachings is still there. Is the Invisible College a literal secret society or a symbolic network of enlightened minds? Personally, I think the answer to this is twofold. First, like I said, I think the true teachers appear invisible or nondescript. If you're walking down the street, you might pass them without a thought until they reveal themselves. And then in that case, I think you would see it through the eyes. Second, I think there's another level to this. I have a feeling that there are also transcended masters who help us from time to time in different ways. A lucky break, a revelation, something we stumble upon, a chance meeting. As far as secret society, maybe. But in my experience, most secret societies are not about enlightenment, but I may be wrong about that. If you have any thoughts about that, you can put that below. Why might a master remain invisible until the seeker achieves a certain level of insight? To me, this seems obvious. You don't want to put the wrong wattage of a bulb into a socket it can't handle. I also think that's why they coded their knowledge in ciphers and symbols. Yes, I explain or dismantle many of these symbols on this channel, but the true meanings of these symbols, I think, are impossible to explain. You can only know. And perhaps that's the most important thing about symbols, is that they exist to represent the unrepresentable. There are layers to symbols that can't be articulated. This is the same thing for these type of initiations. When you know, you know. I would say it's a little like a psychedelic experience. Try telling that to someone, or they just do it and then they understand. But I'm going to leave you with one additional question. Is the withholding of knowledge a form of teaching in itself? I have many theories about this. You can give your thoughts below on what you think, but that's all I got for the Rosicrucians. If you have anything to say about them, or if you have anything to say about how they relate to Gnosticism, you can comment below. But that's all I got. Have a good day. Take care.